The invitation to Marissa's company party arrived with all the enthusiasm of a tax audit notice. "Pete, you're coming with me Friday. Don't embarrass me." That's my wife for you, warm as a January morning in Maine, and twice as welcoming. I'm Pete Dalton, 39 years old, contractor by trade, husband by some cosmic joke. My hands are permanently stained with sawdust and honest work, which apparently makes me about as welcome at Marissa's PR firm as a skunk at a garden party. "What should I wear?" I asked, though I already knew the answer would involve shopping for clothes I'd never wear again. "Something that doesn't scream manual labor," Marissa said, not looking up from her phone. She was scrolling through Instagram, double-tapping photos of other people's perfect lives. "Maybe we can find you a jacket that hides those calluses." Ah, yes, my calluses. The badges of honor from 20 years of building things that last, creating homes where families make memories. But in Marissa's world, they might as well be leprosy spots. The party was held at the Grandview Hotel, the kind of place where the appetizers cost more than most people's lunch. I stood in our bedroom, wrestling with a tie that felt like a noose, watching Marissa apply makeup with the precision of a surgeon. "Remember," she said, catching my eye in the mirror, "these people are important. They could make or break my career." "And I could break their careers just by existing near them?" She turned around, lipstick in hand like a weapon. "Pete, please, just try to fit in. Talk about sports or something normal." Normal. Right. Because discussing the structural integrity of the hotel's crown molding wouldn't be fascinating to a room full of marketing executives. We arrived fashionably late, which in Marissa's world meant exactly 17 minutes past the start time. The ballroom buzzed with conversation and the kind of laughter that sounded like it came from a training manual. Everyone looked polished, pressed, and professionally pleasant. "Marissa?" A tall man with silver hair and a smile that probably came with its own insurance policy approached us. This had to be Stefan DeLuca, Marissa's boss. He had the kind of tan that came from expensive vacations and the kind of watch that cost more than my truck. "Stefan, I'd like you to meet Pete," Marissa said, and I caught something in her voice. A hesitation, like she was introducing a pet she wasn't sure would behave. "Pete, great to finally meet you." Stefan's handshake was firm but brief, the kind that said, "I'm important and this interaction has a time limit." "What line of work are you in?" "I'm a contractor. I build things, fix things, make sure they don't fall down on people." Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "How?" "Practical." Stefan's smile never wavered, but something shifted behind his eyes. "Well, we certainly need people who work with their hands." The conversation moved on, and I found myself standing slightly behind Marissa as she networked with the intensity of a shark in feeding waters. I was introduced to Brianna, a sharp-featured woman who looked like she'd been carved from ice and disappointment, and Elise, whose laugh could shatter glass and probably had. "So, Pete," Brianna said, holding a martini like it was a scepter, "what do you think of all this?" She gestured around the room with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors. "It's nice, though I keep noticing the crown molding is slightly warped in the northeast corner. Probably settling issues with the foundation." Elise giggled, a sound like fingernails on chalkboard. "How wonderfully observant." That's when it happened, the moment that would replay in my mind for weeks to come. A younger woman from the firm approached our group, someone I didn't recognize. She looked at Marissa with the kind of admiration usually reserved for celebrities. "Marissa, I just have to ask, is this your boyfriend? He's so rugged." I waited for Marissa to correct her, to say husband, to claim me as hers. Instead, she laughed. Not a pleasant laugh, the kind of laugh that cuts. "Oh no, Pete's not my boyfriend. He's just, well, let's just say the people here would be allergic to what he does for a living." The group erupted in knowing chuckles. Stefan smirked. Brianna raised an eyebrow, Elise nearly snorted her drink, and I stood there, in my uncomfortable jacket and strangling tie, feeling about as welcome as a tornado at a picnic. "Manual labor," Stefan said, as if the words themselves were distasteful. "Yes, I imagine that would cause quite the reaction in our circles. More laughter, more knowing looks. More of me standing there like a museum exhibit labeled, 'How the Other Half Lives.' I managed a smile. Well, at least I'm not allergic to honesty." The laughter stopped. The group looked at me with the kind of confusion usually reserved for complex math problems. "I think I need some air," I said, and walked away before anyone could respond. I made it to the hotel lobby before my phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. "Where are you? People are asking." I turned off my phone and walked to my truck. As I sat in the parking lot watching the city lights blur through the windshield, I made a decision. If Marissa wanted to pretend I didn't exist, maybe it was time I found out what she was hiding. Because in my experience, people who are ashamed of their partners usually have good reason to be ashamed of themselves. The next morning, Marissa acted like nothing had happened. She made her protein smoothie, checked her reflection 17 times, and kissed my cheek with all the passion of someone greeting a distant relative. "I'm sorry about last night," she said, but her eyes were already on her phone. "You know how these work things are. People just don't understand blue-collar stuff." Blue-collar stuff. Like I was a hobby she'd outgrown. "Right. Well, I've got a job site to check on." "Okay, see you tonight. Oh, and Pete, maybe we could look into getting you some, I don't know, softer shirts? Something that doesn't look so construction-y?" I watched her drive away in her pristine white sedan, and I made another decision. Time to do some investigating. My cousin Val works in IT for a small firm downtown. He's the kind of guy who can find your third-grade teacher's maiden name with 15 minutes and a laptop. More importantly, he's loyal, and he's never liked Marissa. "You want me to do what now?" Val asked when I called him. "Just check if she's got any other social media accounts. Maybe a second phone. Something doesn't add up." "Pete, man, are you sure you want to go down this road?" "I'm already on the road, Val. I just want to know where it leads." 2 hours later, Val called back. "You're not going to like this." He was right. I didn't like it at all. Marissa had a second Instagram account under a slightly different name. The photos were revealing. Not inappropriate, but definitely not the professional image she maintained on her main account. And the comments. Sweet mercy, the comments. Most were from Stefan. "Looking gorgeous as always. Can't wait for our next private meeting. You're wasted on that construction worker." That last one hit like a sledgehammer to the gut, but it was the direct messages that really painted the picture. Messages about hotel rooms and expensive dinners and how Pete would never suspect anything. Val had also found something else. A reservation at Romano's, the Italian place downtown, for tonight. Table for 2 under Stefan's name. "What are you going to do?" Val asked. "I'm going to get a table for one, right next to theirs." Romano's was the kind of restaurant where the waiters spoke in hushed tones and the prices weren't listed on the menu. I'd never eaten there, but I'd done some electrical work for the owner's brother, so I knew the layout. I arrived early and positioned myself at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. The waiter, a thin man with an accent that sounded expensive, seemed puzzled by my presence. "Will anyone be joining you this evening, sir?" "Just me, but I might be here for a while." At 7:30, Stefan arrived. He'd traded his business suit for something more casual, but equally expensive. At 7:45, Marissa walked in. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. But tonight, she looked beautiful for someone else. They were seated 3 tables away, close enough for me to hear their conversation if I listened carefully. And brother, did I listen. "This place is amazing," Marissa said, looking around like she'd never seen cloth napkins before. "Only the best for you," Stefan replied, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "You deserve so much more than what you have. Don't talk about Pete." "Why not? He's holding you back, Marissa. You could be living like this all the time." I ordered another coffee and kept listening. "The partners are talking about promoting me to regional manager," Stefan continued. "That comes with a house in the hills, expense account, company car. You could quit that little PR job and focus on yourself." "What about Pete?" "What about him? He'll find someone more suited to his lifestyle, someone who appreciates manual labor." There it was again, manual labor, like it was a disease. 20 minutes later, Brianna and Elise arrived, sliding into the booth across from Stefan and Marissa like they'd done this before. "How's the husband?" Brianna asked with a smirk. "Probably at home, watching sports and drinking cheap drinks," Elise added. "He can barely spell Pinot Noir," Marissa said, and they all laughed. That's when I stood up. I walked over to their table with my phone in my hand, the screen showing screenshots of their Instagram messages. The restaurant was full, the kind of crowd that loved drama as much as they loved overpriced pasta. "Evening, folks," I said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Hope you don't mind if I join you. After all, Marissa, you did say I wasn't your boyfriend. Guess that makes this a free-for-all." Marissa's face went white. Stefan half stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Brianna and Elise looked like they'd been caught stealing from the collection plate. "Pete, what are you doing here?" Marissa whispered. "Oh, just enjoying some fine dining. You know how us manual laborers love to better ourselves." I held up my phone. Speaking of bettering ourselves, I found some interesting reading material. I started reading their messages aloud. The private ones. The ones about hotel rooms and secret meetings and how stupid Pete would never figure it out. The restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were turning in their chairs, phones coming out, some already recording. Stefan's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You need to leave, now. Actually, Stefan, I think you need to leave. See, this is my wife, legally speaking. And these are her friends, morally speaking, so really you're the odd man out here. I'll call security, Stefan threatened. Please do. I'd love to explain to them why my wife is having dinner with her boss while telling people she's not married to me. That's when Stefan made his mistake. He tried to grab me. I'd been expecting this. In fact, I'd been hoping for it. As Stefan lunged forward, I stepped aside and pulled a small device from my pocket. It looked like a pen, but it was actually a stink bomb I'd bought from a novelty shop. I'd already activated it under Stefan's Porsche in the parking lot. Right on cue, car alarms started going off outside. The smell of rotten eggs began wafting through the restaurant's open windows. Oh no, I said with mock concern. Sounds like someone's car is having problems. Stefan rushed outside, followed by half the restaurant. Through the windows, we could see his Porsche surrounded by a cloud of noxious smoke, its alarm wailing like a banshee. I turned back to Marissa, Brianna, and Elise, who were still sitting in stunned silence. Ladies, it's been educational. Marissa, we'll talk at home, if you still remember where that is. I walked out through the front door, passing Stefan, who was standing next to his stinking car with his phone pressed to his ear, probably calling his insurance company. Pete, he shouted, this isn't over. You're right, I called back. It's just getting started. Marissa didn't come home that night. She sent a text around midnight. Staying at Brianna's. We need to talk. We needed to talk, all right. But first, I needed to gather more ammunition. I called Val first thing in the morning. How good are you at finding financial records? Depends on what you're looking for and how legal you want to keep it. Legal. Mostly. I want to know about Stefan DeLuca's finances. Something tells me his expensive lifestyle doesn't match his salary. Give me a day. Next, I called Jay, my best friend since high school and the most honest mechanic in 3 counties. Jay had the kind of straightforward wisdom that cut through nonsense like a chainsaw through balsa wood. So let me get this straight, Jay said after I'd filled him in over coffee at Murphy's Diner. Your wife is cheating on you with her boss, embarrassed you in public, and now you're planning some kind of elaborate revenge? That's the general idea. Good, she had it coming. Jay stirred his coffee thoughtfully. What do you need? Surveillance. I want to know where Stefan goes, what he does, who he sees, and I want to know what kind of dirt we can dig up on him. I can do that. But Pete, you sure you want to go nuclear on this? Once you start, there's no going back. Jay, she denied knowing me to a room full of people. Then she had dinner with her lover while her friends mocked me for not being able to spell wine names. I'm already past the point of no return. Jay nodded. Then let's make sure she regrets it. That afternoon, Val called with interesting news. Stefan DeLuca is broke, he said. I mean, seriously broke. He's got 3 maxed-out credit cards, a mortgage that's underwater, and he's been borrowing against his 401k. That Porsche? Leased. The expensive dinners? Company credit card. How is that possible? He's a regional manager at a successful firm. That's the beautiful part. He's not a regional manager, he's a senior account executive. Middle management trying to look like upper management. And get this, the company's been investigating some irregularities in expense reports. Guess whose name keeps coming up? This was better than I'd hoped. Stefan wasn't just a cheater, he was a fraud. There's more, Val continued. I may have accidentally sent some anonymous tips to the company's ethics hotline. You know, just information that any concerned citizen might have stumbled across. Val, you beautiful genius. I'm not done. I also may have created a few social media accounts that have been sharing some very interesting information about certain PR executives and their questionable professional relationships. While Val was working his digital magic, Jay was doing old-fashioned detective work. He followed Stefan for 3 days and came back with a treasure trove of information. This guy's a piece of work, Jay reported. He's got at least 2 other women he's seeing besides your wife. One's a client, married to some big-shot lawyer. The other works at the bank where he's been trying to get a loan extension. 3 women? Gets better. He's been using the company's client entertainment budget to wine and dine, all of them. Takes them to the same restaurants, uses the same lines, probably gives them the same gifts. I felt a strange mix of anger and pity for Marissa. She thought she was special, but she was just another mark in Stefan's con game. What's the plan? Jay asked. Stefan's got a big client presentation next week. Something about landing a major hotel chain account. What if that presentation didn't go quite as planned? Jay grinned. What did you have in mind? The next few days were busy. While Marissa continued staying at Brianna's and sending me increasingly hostile texts, I was preparing for the most important presentation of Stefan's career. Val had managed to get access to Stefan's presentation files. Don't ask me how. Val's methods were mysterious and probably involved more computer wizardry than I wanted to know about. The important thing was that we now had copies of all his slides. This is beautiful, I said, looking at Stefan's carefully crafted pitch. Professional, polished, and completely replaceable. What are you thinking? Val asked. I'm thinking Stefan's presentation is about to become a lot more personal. We spent 2 days creating an alternate version of Stefan's presentation. Same professional template, same company logos, but with some very different content. Instead of marketing strategies and revenue projections, our version featured screenshots of Stefan's dating profiles, his financial troubles, and his creative expense reports. The centerpiece was a section titled Client Relations that detailed Stefan's romantic relationships with clients and coworkers, complete with photos and text messages. This is either brilliant or completely insane, Val said as we finished. Why can't it be both? The presentation was scheduled for Thursday morning at the Grandview Hotel, the same place where Marissa had first denied knowing me. The irony was too perfect to ignore. I arrived early, dressed in my best suit, carrying a laptop bag, and looking like I belonged there. The hotel's business center was easy to access. I'd done electrical work there 2 years ago and still knew some of the staff. Pete, good to see you, called Maria, one of the housekeeping supervisors. What brings you back? Just a quick meeting. Say, you wouldn't happen to know if the conference room presentation system still has those connection issues? Oh yes, it's been acting up all week. The IT guy was here yesterday trying to fix it. Perfect. 20 minutes before Stefan's presentation, I made my way to the conference room. The IT access panel was exactly where I remembered it. A few quick cable adjustments, and Stefan's laptop would display whatever I wanted it to display. I positioned myself in the hotel lobby with a clear view of the conference room doors. At exactly 10 a.m., Stefan arrived with his entourage, including Marissa, Brianna, and several people I didn't recognize but who looked important and expensive. The presentation began right on schedule. I could see Stefan through the glass doors, confident and smooth, clicking through his slides with practiced ease. Then he reached slide 15. Even from the lobby, I could hear the gasps and murmurs from the conference room. Stefan's confident posture changed to confusion, then panic, as he realized what was happening. His carefully crafted marketing presentation had been replaced with The Real Stefan De Luca, a case study in creative accounting and client relations. The room erupted. I watched through the glass as Stefan frantically clicked his remote, trying to skip past the incriminating slides, but they just kept coming. Photos of him with different women, copies of his falsified expense reports, screenshots of his dating profiles where he claimed to be single and wealthy. The hotel clients, serious-looking people in expensive suits, were taking notes and whispering among themselves, not the kind of notes Stefan had been hoping for. Marissa was standing against the wall, her face pale, probably realizing that her meal ticket was about to get punched. Stefan finally gave up trying to fix the presentation and started talking, trying to explain, but the damage was done. The clients were already packing up their materials. As they filed out of the conference room, I heard one of them say to his colleague, "Well, that was certainly educational. Make a note to review all our current vendor relationships." Stefan emerged from the conference room looking like he'd been hit by a truck. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfect hair was disheveled, and his face had the kind of pallor usually associated with food poisoning. He spotted me immediately. "You," he snarled, stalking across the lobby. "You did this." "Did what? I'm just here enjoying the complimentary coffee. It's very good coffee, by the way. Much better than what us manual laborers usually drink. I'll destroy you for this." "With what? Your Porsche that smells like rotten eggs? Your maxed-out credit cards? Your soon-to-be former job?" Stefan took a swing at me. I'd been expecting this, too. In fact, I'd been looking forward to it. I stepped back, letting his punch miss by inches, then pulled out my phone and started recording. "Please, hit me," I said. "I could use the lawsuit money, and I'm sure the hotel security cameras are getting great footage." Stefan looked around, suddenly aware that we were in a very public space with multiple witnesses and security cameras. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You're right. It's not over. It's just getting started." As Stefan stalked away, Marissa approached me. She looked tired, defeated, and angry all at once. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because you denied knowing me, because you mocked me in front of your friends, because you've been lying to me for months. Take your pick. I never meant for it to go this far. Neither did I, but here we are. She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been, Marissa. The only difference is now I'm not pretending you respect me. As she walked away, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Satisfaction. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The fallout from Stefan's presentation was swift and merciless. By Friday morning, the story had spread through the local business community like wildfire. Val had made sure of that, strategically sharing the presentation slides on LinkedIn and several industry forums. Stefan DeLuca has been terminated, Val reported during our morning coffee meeting. Effective immediately, the company's also launched a full investigation into his expense account irregularities. What about Marissa? Still employed, but barely. Her boss called her in for a meeting yesterday. Apparently there are questions about her knowledge of Stefan's activities. I felt a twinge of something that might have been guilt, but it passed quickly. Marissa had made her choices. My phone buzzed with a text from Jay. You need to see this. He sent me a link to a local Facebook group called Neighborhood Watch, Riverside District. Mrs. O'Rourke, our 70-something neighbor who treated social media like her personal news network, had posted a lengthy update about the drama unfolding on Maple Street. She'd somehow gotten hold of photos from the restaurant incident and Stefan's failed presentation. The post had 47 comments and counting, most of them from neighbors expressing shock and support. Pete Dalton is such a nice man, wrote Mrs. Henderson from 2 houses down. Always helps with my gutters. That wife of his never deserved him. I saw her bringing that fancy man around when Pete was at work, added Mr. Garcia from across the street. Figured something was up. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, and Marissa was losing badly. That afternoon, Stefan made his next mistake. He showed up at my house. I was in the garage, working on a cabinet for a client, when I heard the familiar rumble of his Porsche. The car still smelled faintly of rotten eggs, despite what must have been multiple professional cleanings. Stefan got out of the car like he was walking into battle, his jaw set, his fists clenched. He'd traded his business suits for jeans and a polo shirt, but he still looked like he was trying too hard to be casual. We need to talk, he announced. We really don't, I replied, not looking up from my work. You've ruined my career. My reputation? My life? I didn't ruin anything. I just shared some information. Public service, really. I could have you arrested for hacking, for corporate espionage, for what? Exposing your lies? Good luck proving I did anything illegal. I finally looked up at him. Besides, seems to me you did most of the work yourself. I just helped people connect the dots. Stefan stepped closer, invading my personal space in a way that was clearly meant to intimidate. You have no idea who you're messing with. Actually, I do. You're a middle management wannabe who's been living beyond his means and lying to everyone about it. You're not scary, Stefan. You're just sad. That's when he shoved me. I stumbled backward, more from surprise than force, and knocked over a can of wood stain. The dark liquid spread across the garage floor like spilled coffee. Oops, I said. Now you've made me clumsy. Stefan raised his fist, and I prepared to defend myself, but then I heard a car door slam. Stefan DeLuca, what the hell do you think you're doing? We both turned to see a woman I didn't recognize striding up my driveway. She was tall, blonde, and furious, with the kind of presence that suggested she was used to being in charge. Jennifer? Stefan's voice cracked like a teenager's. Don't you Jennifer me. I've been looking for you all day. She looked at me, then back at Stefan. Is this the contractor you've been complaining about? This is Pete Dalton, Stefan said weakly. Pete Dalton, the man who exposed your lies and probably saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Jennifer turned to me. Thank you. You're welcome, I think, though I'm not sure what I did. You showed me who Stefan really is before I agreed to marry him. Stefan went pale. Jennifer, let me explain. Explain what? How you've been seeing multiple women while telling each of us we were the only one? How you've been using company money to pay for your dates? How you lied about your job, your finances, and pretty much everything else? I was starting to like Jennifer. The engagement is off, she continued, and I want my ring back. I don't have it with me? Then get it, now. And Stefan, if you ever contact me again, I'll make sure everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. Stefan looked like he wanted to argue, but Jennifer's expression suggested that would be a very bad idea. He slunk back to his Porsche and drove away without another word. Sorry about that, Jennifer said to me. I hope he didn't cause too much trouble. Nothing I couldn't handle. Though I have to ask, how did you know where to find him? She smiled. I've been following him for 2 days. Amazing what you can learn when you actually pay attention. After Jennifer left, I cleaned up the spilled wood stain and tried to get back to work, but I couldn't concentrate. Something about Stefan's visit bothered me. He'd been too desperate, too reckless. People like Stefan didn't usually confront their problems directly. They schemed and manipulated from the shadows, which meant he was planning something. I called Val. I need you to monitor Stefan's online activity, social media, email, everything you can legally access. You think he's planning retaliation? I think he's planning something, and I want to be ready for it. That evening, Marissa finally came home. She looked exhausted, her usual perfect appearance replaced by wrinkled clothes and smeared makeup. We need to talk, she said. I figured we might. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals over 8 years of marriage. It felt strange and formal now, like we were strangers negotiating a business deal. I lost my job, she said. I heard. They said I was a liability, that my association with Stefan reflected poorly on the company's values. She laughed bitterly. Funny how quickly values matter when there's a scandal. I'm sorry. Are you? Really? Because this feels like exactly what you wanted. I considered that. What I wanted was for my wife to respect me. What I wanted was to not be embarrassed and denied in front of strangers. What I wanted was honesty. So you destroyed my career instead? I exposed the truth. Your career destroyed itself. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 years settling between us. What happens now? She asked. I don't know. What do you want to happen? I want to go back to the way things were. Before Stefan? Before you started lying? Before you decided I wasn't good enough for your friends? Before all of this. Before everything got so complicated. I looked at her across the table, this woman I'd loved and married and built a life with, and I realized something that should have been obvious months ago. It can't go back, Marissa. Too much has happened. Too much has been said. So that's it? 8 years, and you're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. You've been unhappy with me for months, maybe years. You found someone you thought was better, someone who could give you the life you wanted. The only problem is, he turned out to be a fraud. Stefan made mistakes. Stefan is a liar and a cheat who was using you the same way he was using 2 other women. But that's not the point. The point is that you were ready to throw away our marriage for him. Marissa started crying then. Not the pretty tears of movies, but the ugly, wrenching sobs of someone whose world was falling apart. I'm sorry, she said between sobs. I'm so sorry, Pete. I never meant for any of this to happen. I know you didn't, but it did happen. And now we have to figure out how to live with the consequences. We talked for another hour, going in circles, rehashing the same points and apologies and accusations. By the time we finished, it was nearly midnight, and we were both emotionally exhausted. I'm going to stay in the guest room, Marissa said. Okay. Just for tonight, until we figure things out. Okay. But we both knew it wouldn't be just for one night. As I lay in our bed, my bed now, I supposed, I thought about Stefan's visit and Jennifer's revelation and the comments on Mrs. O'Rourke's Facebook post. The whole situation had taken on a life of its own, spinning beyond my control. I'd started this wanting simple revenge, a way to make Marissa and Stefan pay for humiliating me. But somewhere along the way, it had become something bigger and messier and more complicated, and I had a feeling it was about to get worse. Saturday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was having coffee on the front porch, enjoying the rare quiet, when a police cruiser pulled into my driveway. Officer Martinez, whom I'd met during a neighborhood break-in investigation last year, got out and approached with the kind of careful neutrality that suggested this wasn't a social call. Morning, Pete. Mind if we talk? Of course. Coffee? Thanks, but I'm on duty. He pulled out a small notebook. I got a complaint filed yesterday. Stefan DeLuca claims you've been harassing him, vandalizing his property, and interfering with his business relationships. I almost laughed. Is that what he's calling it? He's also requesting a restraining order. Says he feels threatened. By me? That's what he claims. Look, Pete, I've known you for years. You're not the type to cause trouble, but I have to follow up on complaints. Can you tell me your side? I told Officer Martinez everything. The restaurant incident, the presentation sabotage, Stefan's visit to my garage. I even showed him the screenshots Val had collected of Stefan's messages and financial irregularities. So you're saying this Stefan fellow was defrauding his company and cheating on multiple women, including your wife? That's exactly what I'm saying, and I can prove it. Officer Martinez studied the evidence for several minutes, occasionally shaking his head or raising an eyebrow. This is quite a mess, he finally said. But from what I can see, you haven't done anything illegal. Embarrassing, maybe. Vindictive, certainly, but not illegal. What about the restraining order? I'll file my report, but I doubt it'll go anywhere. Stefan DeLuca has bigger problems than you right now. After Officer Martinez left, I called Jay. How do you feel about throwing a party? What kind of party? The kind where we invite the whole neighborhood and share some interesting information about local business practices. Jay was quiet for a moment. You sure you want to escalate this further? Stefan filed a police complaint against me. He's trying to make me look like the bad guy. I think it's time the community knew the whole truth. When and where? Tomorrow afternoon. My backyard. Bring your grill. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Mrs. O'Rourke helped spread the word through her social media networks. Jay borrowed a projector from his brother-in-law. Val prepared a comprehensive presentation that made Stefan's failed business pitch look like amateur hour. By Sunday at 2 p.m., my backyard was packed with neighbors, friends, and several people I didn't recognize but who seemed very interested in the proceedings. Welcome, everyone, I said, standing on my deck with a microphone Jay had somehow procured. Thanks for coming to what I'm calling the Truth in Advertising neighborhood gathering. The crowd chuckled. I could see Marissa watching from the guest room window, her face unreadable. Most of you know me. I'm Pete Dalton. I live at 247 Maple Street, and I've been part of this community for 8 years. I fix your electrical problems, I help with your home repairs, and I try to be a good neighbor. Murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Recently, some folks have suggested that people like me, people who work with their hands, aren't good enough for certain social circles. That we're something to be embarrassed about, hidden away, denied. The murmurs grew louder, more indignant. So I thought it might be educational to examine the character of the people who consider themselves superior to manual laborers. I nodded to Val, who started the projector. The presentation was a masterpiece of public humiliation. It began with Stefan's dating profiles, where he claimed to be a successful entrepreneur and regional executive. Then it moved to his financial records, the maxed-out credit cards, the underwater mortgage, the borrowed retirement funds. The crowd gasped when they saw the expense account irregularities, the falsified reports, the evidence of corporate fraud. But the real showstopper was the section on Stefan's romantic relationships. Val had compiled a timeline showing how Stefan had been simultaneously courting Marissa, Jennifer, and at least 2 other women, using the same lines, the same restaurants, even the same gifts. Ladies and gentlemen, I said as the presentation concluded, I give you Stefan DeLuca, a man who considers himself too good to associate with honest workers. The crowd erupted in applause and angry comments. Mrs. O'Rourke was already typing furiously on her phone, probably updating her Facebook followers in real time. That's when Stefan arrived. His Porsche pulled up to the curb with a screech of tires, and he emerged like an avenging angel, if angels wore wrinkled polo shirts and had desperate looks in their eyes. What the hell is this? He shouted, pushing through the crowd. It's a community gathering, I replied calmly. Everyone's welcome. Would you like some potato salad? You can't do this. This is harassment, defamation, invasion of privacy. Actually, it's all public information. Corporate filings, court records, social media posts. Amazing what you can learn when you know where to look. Stefan's face was turning an alarming shade of purple. I'll sue you for everything you're worth. With what money? Your credit cards are maxed out, remember? The crowd was loving this. Several people were recording with their phones, and I could see Mrs. O'Rourke's Facebook live stream had over 100 viewers. You've ruined my life, Stefan screamed. No, Stefan, you ruined your life. I just documented it. That's when Stefan completely lost control. He rushed toward me, fists raised, but he'd forgotten about the steps leading up to my deck. His foot caught on the second step, and he went down hard, landing in Jay's famous 7-layer bean dip. The crowd erupted in laughter. Stefan struggled to his feet, covered in beans and sour cream, his dignity as thoroughly destroyed as his expensive shirt. This isn't over, he yelled, but the effect was somewhat diminished by the guacamole in his hair. Actually, it is over, said a new voice from the back of the crowd. Everyone turned to see Jennifer pushing through the gathering, followed by 2 other women I didn't recognize but who looked familiar from the dating profile photos. Stefan DeLuca, Jennifer announced in a voice that carried across the entire yard. You are a lying, cheating fraud, and we want everyone to know it. The other women nodded in agreement. One of them, a redhead with fire in her eyes, stepped forward. He told me he was divorced and owned a successful consulting firm. Turns out he's not divorced, doesn't own anything, and just got fired for stealing from his company. The second woman, a brunette with the kind of composure that suggested she was used to public speaking, added, "He borrowed $5,000 from me for a business emergency. I want everyone here to know that Stefan DeLuca is a con artist and a thief." Stefan looked around the crowd, seeing nothing but hostile faces and recording phones. His shoulders sagged in defeat. "You people don't understand," he said weakly. "I was trying to build something, to be someone important." "You were important," I said. "You were someone's boss, someone's boyfriend, someone they trusted, but you threw it all away because you wanted to be something you're not." Stefan stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to his Porsche. As he drove away, the crowd cheered like they'd just witnessed the end of a particularly satisfying movie. The party continued for another 2 hours. Neighbors shared their own stories about Stefan's arrogance and Marissa's condescending attitude. Mrs. O'Rourke's Facebook post was shared over 300 times. Jay's barbecue was declared the best in the neighborhood. As the sun began to set and people started heading home, I found myself standing alone on my deck, looking out over my backyard where the remnants of the day's festivities were scattered like evidence of a very successful battle. Marissa appeared beside me, having finally emerged from the guest room. "That was quite a show," she said. "It was quite a truth-telling." "Is that what you call it?" "What would you call it?" She was quiet for a moment. "Revenge." "Maybe, but also justice. Stefan destroyed people's lives for his own selfish purposes. He deserved to be exposed." "What about me? Did I deserve this?" I looked at her, this woman I'd loved and married and shared 8 years of my life with. "You made choices, Marissa. You chose to be ashamed of me, to lie to me, to betray me. Those choices had consequences. So what happens now? Now you decide what kind of person you want to be. And I decide whether I can live with that person." She nodded slowly, tears welling up in her eyes, her breath hitching as she fought to keep it together. "I think I need to go stay with my sister for a while. Figure some things out." "I think that's probably a good idea," I replied, my voice calm, but my mind racing with the weight of it all. This was it. The end of whatever we had, the end of the pretense. We were both standing at a crossroads, and the roads ahead weren't ones I wanted to travel with her, not anymore. Marissa didn't say anything else. She turned and went inside to pack, her footsteps slow and heavy on the wood floors. I stayed on the deck, leaning against the railing, watching the last traces of the sunset paint the sky in a blaze of orange and purple. For once, I wasn't consumed by guilt or the need to fix something I couldn't. I just watched the sky, felt the cool air on my skin, and let myself breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out, glancing at the screen. Friend requests, messages of support, invitations to neighborhood gatherings. Even in the mess of my life, people still cared. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like myself again, not the embarrassed husband hiding in the corner of parties, pretending to be someone I wasn't, not the guy who was always in the background, doing the hard work while everyone else moved ahead. Just Pete Dalton, contractor, neighbor, and apparently the champion of truth. Tomorrow, I'd start cleaning up the mess in my backyard and my life. But tonight I was going to enjoy the silence, the satisfaction of having finally done something right. I had fought for what was mine, stood up for myself, and for once, I wasn't going to let the weight of my past dictate my future. 3 days later, just as I was starting to think the whole Stefan situation had finally concluded, he made one last, desperate play. It was a Wednesday evening. I was in my workshop, putting the finishing touches on a custom bookshelf for the Hendersons. The rhythmic sound of my tools was soothing, a constant I could count on in the middle of the chaos. But then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of glass breaking. Not the accidental kind, like when something gets knocked over. No, this was different. This was deliberate, angry, vengeful. I froze, the hammer still in my hand as a surge of adrenaline coursed through me. I grabbed a flashlight and rushed outside, my boots heavy on the porch as I made my way around the side of the house. When I rounded the corner, I saw him, Stefan. He was standing next to my truck, holding a tire iron, his face twisted in rage. My driver's side window was shattered, glass strewn across the driveway, and a fresh dent marred the passenger door. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Stay calm. I kept my voice steady, masking the storm of anger inside me. Feel better now? Stefan didn't respond right away. Instead, he drew a long, shaky breath, his eyes wide and red-rimmed. Not even close. His voice was raw, jagged, and when he spoke, it was clear he hadn't slept in days, maybe weeks. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced by wrinkled jeans and a stained t-shirt. The image of the suave, confident man I once knew was gone, replaced by someone who looked like he'd been living in his car. You destroyed everything. My job, my reputation, my relationships, everything. I felt a strange calm settle over me, almost as if I was watching this all unfold from a distance. This is his mess, not mine. I didn't back down, though. You destroyed those things yourself. I just helped people see the truth. Stefan laughed then, a bitter, hollow sound. It wasn't a laugh of amusement, but of defeat. The truth? He scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. The truth is that people like you are supposed to know their place. You're supposed to stay in your lane, do your little jobs, and not interfere with your betters. Betters? I took a step forward, my hands clenched into fists. My betters? You mean lying, cheating fraudsters who steal from their companies and con multiple women simultaneously? My voice didn't waver. If anything, it grew stronger, steadier. You're not better than anyone. You're just a coward who hides behind lies and manipulation. Stefan's face twisted in fury. Without warning, he raised the tire iron high, his grip tight around the handle. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't flinch. This wasn't the first time I'd faced someone who thought violence could solve their problems. I'm going to make you pay for what you've done, he snarled. The words hung in the air between us, thick and heavy with threat. But I stood my ground, refusing to show fear. You're already paying, Stefan, I said quietly, my gaze never leaving his. And you always will. With what? You're broke, unemployed, and probably facing criminal charges. What exactly are you going to do to me? I'm going to take everything from you, the same way you took everything from me. That's when I realized Stefan wasn't just angry. He was completely unhinged. The careful facade of the successful businessman had cracked completely, revealing something desperate and dangerous underneath. Stefan, you need help. Professional help. This isn't going to solve anything. Shut up! He swung the tire iron at my truck's headlight, shattering it. You think you're so smart, so clever, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. I backed toward my workshop, keeping the flashlight trained on him. What are you capable of, Stefan? I know where you work. I know your clients. I know your friends. He was breathing heavily, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening air. I can ruin your business the same way you ruined mine. My business is built on quality work and honest relationships. You can't destroy that with lies. We'll see about that. Stefan turned toward his Porsche, and I thought he was leaving. Instead, he opened the trunk and pulled out a gasoline can. Stefan, don't do anything stupid. Stupid? This is brilliant. Your workshop burns down, your tools are destroyed, your livelihood goes up in smoke. See how superior you feel then. He started pouring gasoline around the base of my workshop, and I realized the situation had escalated beyond anything I'd prepared for. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about a man who'd lost everything and wanted to take someone down with him. I pulled out my phone to call 911, but Stefan saw the movement. Don't even think about it, he snarled, brandishing the tire iron again. That's when I remembered the workshop's security system. Not an alarm, something much better. Jay had helped me install it last year after a rash of tool thefts in the neighborhood. I pressed a button on my key fob, and suddenly the workshop lit up like a Christmas tree. Motion-activated floodlights illuminated every corner of the yard, while hidden speakers began blaring an air horn sound that could wake the entire neighborhood. Stefan stumbled backward, temporarily blinded by the sudden brightness. What the... The workshop's sprinkler system activated next, dousing Stefan and washing away most of the gasoline he'd poured. The system was designed to protect my woodworking equipment from fire, but it worked just as well on arsonists. Stefan stood there, dripping wet and furious, looking like a drowned rat in designer jeans. You think this is funny? He screamed over the noise of the alarm. Actually, yes. I think it's hilarious. That's when the neighbors started arriving. The combination of floodlights and air horns had done their job. Within minutes, my yard was full of people wanting to know what was happening. Mrs. O'Rourke appeared first, wearing a bathrobe and carrying her phone like a weapon. Pete, are you all right? I'm streaming this live on Facebook. Jay arrived next, still in his work clothes, carrying a baseball bat. What's going on? Pete, you okay? I'm fine. Stefan here was just leaving. But Stefan wasn't leaving. If anything, the audience seemed to energize him. He straightened up, trying to regain some dignity despite being soaked and surrounded. You people don't understand what this man has done to me, he announced to the gathering crowd. He's a stalker, a hacker, a criminal. He's the guy who exposed your lies, called out Mr. Garcia from across the street. We all saw the presentation. That presentation was based on stolen information, invasion of privacy, corporate espionage. Mrs. Henderson, still in her gardening gloves, stepped forward. Young man, Pete Dalton has been nothing but helpful and honest in this neighborhood. You, on the other hand, tried to set fire to his workshop. I wasn't going to set fire to anything. I was just... You were just what? Officer Martinez had arrived, drawn by the commotion. He took in the scene, the gasoline can, the broken truck window, the tire iron, Stefan's guilty expression, and reached for his handcuffs. Stefan DeLuca, you're under arrest for attempted arson, vandalism, and criminal threatening. This is ridiculous. He's the criminal. He ruined my life. Sir, you have the right to remain silent. I'd suggest you use it. As Officer Martinez led Stefan away, the crowd began to disperse, but not before Mrs. O'Rourke had gotten enough footage for a documentary. This is going to get so many views, she said excitedly. Pete, you're going to be famous. I'd rather just be left alone. Jay stayed behind to help me clean up the gasoline and board up my truck window. You know this isn't over, right? He said as we worked. Stefan's going to prison, but Marissa's still out there, and she's not going to be happy about tonight's entertainment. Marissa's staying with her sister. She's got bigger problems than me right now. Like what? Like finding a new job, a new place to live, and a new identity that doesn't involve being the woman who cheated on her husband with a criminal. Jay grinned. You know, when this all started, I thought you were just getting back at your cheating wife. But you've turned this into something bigger. How so? You've exposed a fraud, saved multiple women from being conned, and probably prevented Stefan from stealing more money from his company. You're like a one-man justice department. I considered that as we finished cleaning up. I just wanted people to see the truth. Mission accomplished. The next morning brought a surprise visitor. Jennifer, Stefan's former fiancée, knocked on my door carrying a coffee tray and what looked like legal documents. I brought breakfast, she said, and news. We sat on my front porch, drinking coffee and eating pastries while she filled me in on the latest developments. Stefan's been charged with attempted arson, vandalism, and criminal threatening, but that's not the interesting part. What's the interesting part? The FBI is investigating his former company for wire fraud and embezzlement. Apparently Stefan wasn't the only one cooking the books. The whole company was corrupt? From what I understand, yes. Stefan was just the most obvious about it. She handed me the legal documents. Which brings me to why I'm here. I scanned the papers. They were from a law firm I'd never heard of, offering to represent me in a civil suit against Stefan and his former company. They want me to sue? They want to use your evidence to build a case against the entire operation. Apparently your presentation at the neighborhood party has become Exhibit A in a federal investigation. I laughed. Mrs. O'Rourke's Facebook livestream is evidence in a federal case? Among other things, the FBI is very interested in how you gathered your information and what else you might have discovered. I didn't discover anything illegal. I just connected dots that were already there. That's what makes you valuable. You saw patterns that trained investigators missed. I set down the documents. Jennifer, I appreciate this, but I'm not looking to get rich off Stefan's stupidity. I just wanted him to stop hurting people. I understand, but think about it. This could prevent other Stefan DeLucas from conning other victims. Your evidence could shut down an entire network of fraud. She had a point. If Stefan's company was systematically defrauding clients and investors, then exposing them was about more than personal revenge. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Jennifer stood to leave, then paused. Pete, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you regret any of this? The investigation, the public humiliation, the way everything spiraled out of control? I thought about that for a moment. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Marissa felt she had to lie and cheat instead of just telling me she was unhappy. I regret that Stefan hurt so many people with his cons. But do I regret exposing the truth? No, I don't regret that at all. Jennifer smiled. Good answer. After she left, I sat on my porch for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened over the past few weeks. My marriage was over, my truck was damaged, and my quiet life had become the subject of neighborhood gossip and federal investigation. But I felt better than I had in months. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about Stefan. Good for you. Val's friend from the IT department. Then another. Pete, this is Maria from the hotel. Heard what happened. If you ever need electrical work done, call me first. And another. Mr. Dalton, this is Jennifer's friend Sarah. I'm getting married next year and need someone to rewire my house. Are you available? By the end of the day, I'd received 17 messages from people offering work, support, or just congratulations, word was spreading that Pete Dalton was the contractor who'd taken down a corrupt businessman and exposed a fraud ring. My reputation wasn't ruined, it was enhanced. That evening, as I was finishing up in the workshop, Marissa's car pulled into the driveway. She stepped out slowly, almost like she was approaching a crime scene, hesitant but determined to face whatever was left between us. "I heard about last night," she said, her voice soft but edged with something like regret. "News travels fast," I replied, wiping my hands on a rag, not sure if I should be surprised or indifferent to the fact that she knew so quickly. "Stefan could have hurt you, or worse," she added, her gaze darting to the workshop door, as if she could still see him there. "But he didn't," I said, my voice steady, "and now he can't hurt anyone else." We stood there for a long moment in the fading light, two people who'd once shared everything and were now facing the cold, hard truth that we would share nothing but a past and a future that would never overlap. The air between us was thick with unspoken words, and yet we both seemed to know that this was the moment to finally speak honestly, to say what had been left unsaid for so long. "I'm sorry," she said finally, her voice breaking slightly, "for all of it. The lying, the cheating, the way I treated you. You deserved better." "Yes, I did," I responded without hesitation. The truth felt as heavy as the silence around us. "I know you probably can't forgive me." "Marissa," I interrupted softly, shaking my head. "Forgiveness isn't the issue. Trust is the issue, and that's something that can't be rebuilt. Not between us." She nodded, her tears starting to fall, and for the first time I saw the weight of her regrets in her eyes. "I know. I just wanted you to know that I realize what I lost. You're a good man, Pete. A better man than I deserved." I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I just looked at her, wondering how we'd gotten here. She wasn't a bad person, but the choices she'd made, those were her own. "You're not a bad person, Marissa," I said finally, my voice soft. "You just made bad choices." She took a shaky breath. "What happens now?" I looked around at the life we'd once built, my workshop, the house, the neighborhood where, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was starting to be seen for who I truly was. Not for the guy who'd been manipulated or the one who'd hidden in the background, but for who I really was. A man who had worked hard, lived honestly, and stood up when it mattered. "Now we figure out how to end this marriage with as much dignity as we can manage," I said, meeting her gaze. "We divide our assets, sign our papers, and try to build separate lives." "Will you be okay?" she asked, her voice small. I took a deep breath, glancing back at my workshop, the house where I'd spent years fixing things, and the quiet neighborhood where people were starting to treat me differently. "Yeah, I think I'll be just fine," I said, the certainty in my voice surprising even me. After she left, I went inside and poured myself a drink. Not a fancy cocktail, not the expensive wine I'd once thought was the key to sophistication. Just whiskey. Honest, simple whiskey that tasted exactly like what it was, straightforward and unpretentious. My phone rang just as I was about to take a sip. It was Mrs. O'Rourke. "Pete, dear, I just wanted you to know. My Facebook post about last night has been shared over 2,000 times. You're going viral." I leaned back in my chair, a dry smile tugging at my lips. "Is that good or bad?" "Oh, it's very good. People love a story about the little guy standing up to corruption. You're like David and Goliath, except David had a workshop full of power tools." I chuckled despite myself. "Mrs. O'Rourke, you have a gift for metaphor." "I have a gift for recognizing a good story when I see one," she said, her tone lighter now, almost playful. "And yours is a very good story indeed." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, looking around my kitchen, at the life I had built with my own hands. The cabinets I'd installed, the floors I'd refinished, the electrical work I'd upgraded. The house felt different now. It was no longer a place where I'd been hiding from the truth. It was mine, my creation, my space, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding. Not just the truck window or the equipment in my workshop, but my life, as a single man. A man with a place in this community. A community that was finally starting to recognize the value of honest work, the value of someone who did the hard things, the necessary things, day in and day out. I'd learned something important over the past few weeks. Respect isn't something you can demand, or fake, or buy with expensive clothes and fancy cars. Respect is earned. It's earned through honest work, consistent character, and the courage to stand up for what's right. And I had stood up. I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. Stefan DeLuca had learned that lesson the hard way, and Pete Dalton, manual laborer, contractor, and apparently amateur fraud investigator, was just getting started. The story ended there, in that moment of quiet satisfaction. No need for a grand epilogue, no redemption arc for the villains. Just a good man who'd stood up for himself, and who, for the first time in a long time, had found peace in the truth, and that was enough.